Hello everybody, John Bornschein here, and this is Cable Lane. Today we continue in our study of experiencing God day by day. This wonderful book was written by Dr. Henry Blackaby and his son Richard. And Dr. Blackaby, as you know, was one of my mentors, and I've really learned a lot from not only his teachings and other resources, but especially in this almost a daily devotional that he produced many years ago when I first started at Focus on the Family. So I want to bless you today with some of the words that have been entrusted to me and to others who have also read from his many works. Today's study is on contentment. Now, immediately when we hear that word, we might not think that this applies to us. But quite frankly, I think if we do a self-assessment, we realize just how discontent we can actually be and how we lack an attitude of gratitude for everything that God has done for us. Let's begin with our reading of Philippians chapter 4, verse 11. He says, "Not that I speak from want, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am." Now, this is from the Apostle Paul, and he was talking about how he could do all things through Christ who strengthens him. And that was because he had learned to be content with whatever circumstances God had brought upon him, because he was going to be glorified through his servant Paul. And likewise for us, we may find that there are many unexpected circumstances that have arisen even today. Maybe that flat tire happened. Maybe the plumbing went out, or there was a flooding, whatever it might occur. Sometimes we can feel like, well, God, where were you on that one? Why didn't you just keep me from all adversity? Rather than understanding that through the storms of life, God is going to bring glory to himself, and you get to be an instrument in that process. It's part of the journey. After all, it is his story in which we are celebrating. Now, our world can often create a great deal of dissatisfaction. If you just turn on the television or social media or any type of media tool, whatever medium it might be, you'll see a number of advertisements and you'll see many stories come across your screen suggesting that you don't have what you really desire, that your car is not good enough, your home or whatever your circumstances are just not good enough, and that creates this drive and insatiable thirst to have more instead of learning to be content in whatever God has provided. Because at the root of this is the fact that we have to learn total commitment and contentment in Jesus Christ. He needs to be our all in all. It's all about him after all. So we have to learn a lot about our walk with the Lord, and it's often revealed in us by our attitudes in these circumstances. Now, the Apostle Paul has a great deal to share with us of that journey. Let me just take you back to some of his words in 2 Corinthians. For example, I have here 2 Corinthians chapter 1, starting in verse 8, and he was describing his situation in which he had not only learned this contentment when times when God had given him ample supply, maybe monetarily or plenty of support, people around him to encourage him. In certain circumstances, he may have been all alone. And we know he certainly finished his life in a prison in Rome, very lonely. And so there are circumstances at times we face when we can feel like God has taken away. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. And yet in that, even in those circumstances, God is glorified. We have to trust him and be fully content that he is enough. It is all about him. Listen to what Paul says, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 8. "For we do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, of our trouble which came to us in Asia, that we were burdened beyond measure, above strength, so that we despaired even of life. Yes, we had the sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in God who raises the dead." It's so easy for us to think about how we're going to absolve each and every matter, resorting to our own techniques, plan A, B, C, D, and rarely do we find ourselves in a posture of total dependency on God, like he did for the Israelites in the wilderness, providing manna for them in the wilderness, providing ample supply of water, shelter. There was even a cloud by day, fire by night. The Lord provided, and he will provide for us. But so often we want more. We're not content. Well, we have to find that even in circumstances that may go totally against what we want, that God can still be glorified even in that. He has a reason for everything He's doing. In Acts chapter 16, we see that when Paul and Silas were imprisoned, they had done a great deal of work across what was modern-day Turkey. And here they were imprisoned for having done the work of the Lord. And this is now in Philippi. And it says in Acts chapter 16, verse 25, after they had been wrongly imprisoned and beaten for doing the work of the Lord, in verse 25, it says, "But at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them." You see, they had learned to be totally content in their Lord. His satisfaction is all that mattered, day or night. And even in prison, they had to learn how to praise even in the midst of great adversity. Let's read the final words together here from Dr. Henry Blackaby. He says, "Contentment frees you to enjoy every good thing God has given you. Contentment demonstrates your belief that God loves you and has your best interest in mind. Discontentment stems from the sin of ingratitude and a lack of faith that God loves you enough to provide for you all that you need. Strive to be grateful for all that God has given you. A grateful heart leaves no room for envy." I want to thank you for watching Cable Lane today, and I hope you've been blessed and encouraged, and yes, even convicted. God bless you, my friends. Take care.